Just like any dynastic rule in the long history of East Asia, the Yi Dynasty or the Choson Dynasty underwent the full cycle in more than 500 years of being founded, consolidated, decline, and then a collapse. Actually, the Yi Dynasty didn't come to an end until 1910, the beginning of the 20th century, when Korea was colonized by Japan and then incorporated into the rising Japanese Empire, a chapter in Korean history that should be covered in modern East Asian history class. In this class section, we talked about the founding of the Yi Dynasty, the consolidation of Yi dynastic rule over Korean peninsula in the 14th and 15th century. Now let's talk about the decline of the Yi dynasty, the decline that could be attributed to the external challenges and threats from the two neighbors Korea had in East Asia, Japan and China. As we are going to discuss later on, at the end of the 16th century, at the beginning of the 17th century, Japan was experiencing the transition from political division to political unity, a transition that was led by several capable samurai leaders or daimyo leaders. One of such a samurai leader was Toyotomi Hidiyoshi, who not only wanted to reunite a Japanese archipelago, but also he wanted to build an empire that would include Japan, Korea, and China and the Ming Dynasty. So, while achieving dramatic military success in reuniting the Japanese archipelago, Toyotomi Hideyoshi devised a plan to invade China and the Ming Dynasty at the end of the 16th century. To get the cooperation of the Yi Dynasty for his plan, Toyotomi Hideyoshi and his samurai forces must pass through Korea in order to reach China. Toyotomi Hideyoshi and his government contacted the Yi rulers, hoping that the Yi Dynasty would cooperate with the Japanese. But as a tributary partner of China and the Ming Dynasty, the Yi Dynasty rejected the proposal from Toyotomi Hideyoshi. In response to that rejection, Toyotomi Hideyoshi and his samurai forces invaded Korea twice at the end of the 16th century, or between 1593 and 1597. Although the invasions were defeated by the determined Korean military forces and capable military leaders serving the Yi Dynasty, the invasions themselves greatly devastated Korean society, its economy, and reduced the population in Korea. For example, during the invasion of Korea by Toyotomi Hideyoshi and his samurai forces, at the highest point of the invasion, the number of samurai forces from Japan fighting in Korea reached 250,000 people. The capital city, Seoul, and its imperial palace called Gyeongpogung were completely destroyed by the Japanese invading forces. Gyeongpogung, as showed in this picture, was reconstructed after the defeat of a Japanese invasion. So because of this invasion and its economic impact, the Yi Dynasty's ability to rule Korea was tremendously weakened. After the end of the 16th century, the Korean state and society had to put a lot of resources to repair the damage caused by Toyotomi Hideyoshi's military adventures in a Korean peninsula. Towards the middle part of the 17th century, the Yi dynasty found itself being pressured by another military challenge or threat. As we know quite well, by the middle part of the 17th century, the Ming dynasty had been conquered and defeated by the rising Manchu military forces. In 1644, the Ming dynasty was ended and the Qing dynasty or the Manchu dynasty was founded. The original homeland of the Manchus, Manchuria, was situated between China and Korea. In the middle part of the 17th century, the Yi dynasty found itself facing the same kind of situation that Koryo Dynasty had been facing in the middle part of the 13th century when the Mongols increased the military pressure upon the Korean state. Facing the military might of the Manchu conquerors and the Qing dynasty, the Yi dynasty had no option but to submit itself to the political and the military predominance of the Manchu people in East Asia, including China and Korean peninsula. The cultural response of the Yi dynasty and its Confucian scholars to the rising power of Manchu people and the Qing dynasty was a development of a belief that from this moment onward, China was no longer the bastion of new Confucianism or Confucian civilization because it now came to be controlled by the uncultured Manchu conquerors. As another Confucian state in East Asia, Korea now became the new bastion of Confucianism. It was a Confucian state that was more Confucian than China, where Confucianism was first originated. It was against this historical background, it was against the military challenge and threat from the Manchu conquerors and the military forces that the Yi dynasty and its Confucian scholars self-appointed themselves as the guardian of new Confucianism.